Hi, everybody from the Fandom Portals community. It's Aaron here, and I would like to proudly introduce you to our newest guest, whose name is Michael Papaeleftheriou. He's an Australian filmmaker, director, and producer, and also dabbles in a little bit of acting and writing. And Michael works in the indie scene and has recently put his short film Crossroads into some of the film festival scenes around the world. Now, it was a really great chat with Michael. He revealed a lot of his process in terms of filmmaking, and he was also a really nice guy to talk to. It was really awesome to get to know him. And he has also agreed to appear on the Fandom Portals podcast again to discuss one of his favorite movies, The Matrix. So please enjoy this episode of the Fandom Portals podcast featuring the Australian filmmaker, Michael Papaeleftheriou. Welcome to the Fandom Portals Podcast, the podcast that explores how fandoms can help you learn and grow. I'm your host, Aaron Davies, and today I'm joined by Michael Papaeleftheriou. Michael is a filmmaker, a writer, producer, and editor, and he's got a short coming out, which is called Crossroads. Thank you for joining me, Michael. How are you today?
I'm awesome. Aaron, thanks for having me.
Very, very welcome. Now, we were talking before about how you've gone on a pretty big journey in terms of your filmmaking career. Some credits to you. You've done some short films, including Park Bench, No Way Out, and Crossroads over the last couple of years. And we might get into those a little bit later. But before we do, I wanted to talk to you about what sort of inspired you to jump into this field. What led you into the filmmaking scene? It's obviously a passion of yours. I can tell by how much dedication and work you've put into these projects. So where did it all start for you?
So what happened was I just finished it was like the last day of, I don't know if you guys have the HSC in Queensland.
Yeah, we have something similar.
It was the last day, just finished the last test. And I was like, all right, mum, you owe me, for some reason you owe me. Take me to Blockbuster. I'm getting 5 movies at once. So I did that and then had a bit of an epiphany where I realized, I was always familiar with the characters Jay and Silent Bob, but I just assumed they were in one movie. And then I saw that they were on the cover of another movie and I was like, what? You can't just put the same characters in different movies. That's illegal, right? So I rented Morats, and when I saw that Kevin Smith had just stuck his characters in other movie, I was like, oh, well, if he's allowed to do that, then I'm allowed to make movies, right? The logic somehow clicked. And then on all the movies that I rented, I just consumed the special features. And by the end of that week, I was like, oh, I want to do filmmaking. Screw engineering.
Yeah. Oh man, we have that in common because I think Blockbuster Video was just an experience for anyone that kind of grew up in the 90s. You'd go there and your weekend was just fully planned for you with whatever you rented out. But I think those 90s filmmakers, they kind of made sort of filmmaking look accessible because they started from really nothing. They hired their friends to be in these kinds of movies, and then they made careers out of these sorts of things. We recently just did Jersey Girl on the podcast, which is a Kevin Smith movie as well, when he went to go into a more sort of serious run without the Jay and Silent Bob. But yeah, it's just funny to see how that kind of thing can develop into a career. But I think there is a lot of barriers for a lot of people where it seems out of reach. And very much like you, I consume a lot of the special features on DVDs as well. So, and it does kind of open the door for it. And it's sort of my toes in, curiosity wise, and I'm starting to talk to some people about it. But I don't know if I'd go down the sort of filmmaking route. But kudos to you for doing it, man. It seems like a big undertaking. You started in writing, is that correct?
No, I did start in writing. I've sort of pivoted towards writing. It's just so much more accessible and it's easier, to be honest. Yeah.
I can fully see that because the only thing that I would think about writing was that it kind of, when you hand that script or that screenplay over, you're kind of handing over creative control, I guess you can say, or the vision of how it will look on the screen. With your sort of filmmaking experience, you've done work as an actor, a director, and a producer. What kind of roles have you found, and an editor as well? What kind of roles have you found is your preferred, for one, and which one do you think is the most challenging in terms of those spaces in film?
I'm going to go with the cop-out answer and just say, preferred is writer-director. That's everyone's quote-unquote dream. But I feel like I've developed a bit of a specialty for producing. You go to film school and you learn about all the fancy art stuff. But for some reason, you sort of there's a big deficit in just getting things done. And like, that is actually what you need to be doing, especially if you not just pay money to go to film school, but like pay time. That's something that a lot of people don't realize. If you're going to take a 3-year full-time course, it's like 3 years that you could have been doing something else. So you have to like make the most of those 3 years. And, the best thing about film school is like you have free equipment essentially that you can rent. So you should really just be making as much stuff happen as possible. And I think that's sort of where my strength is, even though I don't really do it too often anymore.
And I think the connections as well, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but all of the people that you kind of meet in film school are people that you could potentially work with later, but also at the time when you're working with them, it's good to, in a collaborative experience, bounce off of each other instead of doing everything all by yourself, which is pretty big as well. So you said you went to film school, and the sort of, like, with the state of Australian films and especially indie films right now, was it ever like a confronting thing for you? Like you said, you sort of jumped into it after your HSC. Was it ever confronting thinking that the Australian space isn't so large? Like, what were some of the challenges in terms of making a film for an Australian space? And then obviously we had like COVID-19 as well, which would have impacted the industry too.
I don't think I ever got far enough to really give you a serious answer with regards to that. There is something like awkward that I've realized as I've kept making more, not making more, but like writing more and more. I think when you come up in the Australian circuit, everyone is like very quote unquote arts housey. All the stories, like even like in film school, not just with regards to what gets made, but in film school, you're surrounded by people that are, quote unquote visionaries or quote unquote, they want stories that it's like, the human spirit and all this and that. But, most of the movies that get made, especially like most of the movies that just get made in general are, marketable things that you could see in a cinema. I think that it's a sort of shame that we disregard those a little bit, because I feel like Australian cinema sort of shoots itself in the foot. And even when something awesome does come out, it's like, it's not supported because I think, the consensus is that, if it's Australian, then it's going to be boring. Meanwhile, we've got everyone at film school being like, these stories are also like, special, but no one cares. And if no one cares, then like we're not going to be able to make more. And that's the catch-22.
Has that influenced your writing at all? Because I know that some writers do write to the market, but other people write to sort of express a vision. So has that sort of influenced your writing, or are you one of those people that really want to sort of express what you feel that you want to express?
It probably did influence my writing in the wrong way at the beginning. It really hampered me, especially when you go to film school and you're learning about like theme and, like what is your story saying? And I've been lucky, and like I got caught up in that stuff, and then I got lucky enough to really surround myself with the right kind of other writers. And, that stuff's all crap, because at the end of the day, like if you can't write something that's interesting, no one cares about what you have to say. Like there's been so many, up and coming writers that are like, here's my script, I'll read it, I'll give them feedback. And then they'll be like, but you don't understand the story. And it's like, well, like I understand it, I just don't care, because like you haven't done a good job of writing. And to be honest, like that sort of blockbustery stuff where it's like something simple, for example, like, there's a character in a hallway, they want to get from one side of a hallway to the other side of the hallway. And there's all these obstacles, whether it's like, furniture or another character that's trying to like stop them. Then maybe there's another character chasing them. These are the sort of the simple, tools of scene work that you really need to get good at if you want to make something interesting. It's like, that's the basics of the basics, and people sort of forego those because, they have this like grand theme, and it's sort of like you're missing the work. You're missing doing like lifting like 10 kilos on the bench press, and you're going straight to like 100 kilos. No one cares about your theme if you can't like write it in a good way. So yeah, hindered me at the start, but I sort of got lucky enough to surround myself with the right people. Yeah.
And I think from following your, like, because I've sort of had a bit of a look at your Instagram journal that you did for Crossroads, which we'll talk about really soon. But I like how open and honest you were about in the process through that. And I think it was really like, it made it accessible, but it was also, I want to say, it seemed therapeutic for you to sort of put it down in that way chronologically. I think I saw one of your reels where you said on the down days or the low points on the days, you'll go and you'll look back at all of the things that you've put on this journal for Crossroads, and it will show you how far you've kind of come. So I guess my question is from like Park Bench to Crossroads, what's when you went to approach Crossroads as your short film that you were going to do, it obviously took a very different approach. You said you wanted to dive right in, basically. Can you explain a little bit about Crossroads and a little bit about that process of transitioning from a project that I think you said you cast your friends in and things like that to something like Crossroads where it's a little bit more sort of professional and something that you want to really dive into?
So my earlier projects were like, very much the fantasy of like filmmaking where it's like, yep, just get your friends. So let's see what we could do. And like, let's learn as well. And that was great. Like, they were great learning opportunities. Like, I made some big mistakes with the earlier films, especially Park Bench, like the audio is horrible, but, I used those earlier films as like stepping stones and like as a way to learn. I didn't really, like, I submitted to a few festivals and never got in, which makes sense. But the goal there was just to learn. And the goal with Crossroads was to like sort of reverse engineer a career. So like I sort of started at the end with Crossroads. I was like, I want money to make a feature. How do I get money to make a feature? Like, I took a meeting with Screen New South Wales and they said, well, after we've looked at, I had a chat with them, like a video chat, sort of like I'm doing now. I told them this is what I've done. This is what I'm doing. And they said, okay, like, it looks like the best way for you to get funding is to make a short film. You've got to hit these markers. You've got to get accepted to such and such festival, and then you'll be eligible for funding. So now I'm reverse engineering things. Okay, I'm going to make a short film. I'm going to make it like to the highest quality as I can. I've been writing heaps of crime. So like, let's put it in the crime genre. All the mistakes from my earlier films were like the unpredictable elements. All right, let's keep it at one location. We're not going to even move locations. It's going to be indoors. So like, because with Park Bench, it was meant to be a 4-day shoot, ended up being a 2-day shoot. And then from that, we went to a 1-day shoot because when we got to location, the wind was so intense. Like, I had prepared the audio equipment. We had like a blimp, we had everything, but the wind was so intense that the actors' faces, like, you could tell that they were just being bombarded by sand, and like, there's like a once in a year sort of a windstorm. And yeah, like, that doesn't happen often, but when you're renting your equipment, when you're getting like people to work on your film, you sort of want to make the most of it. So I didn't want that variable. So like, now we're indoors, and yeah, that's where I went. And I guess I wrote something from there. Like, I wrote the script to the setting, and I wanted to get 2 characters because that's sort of like the minimum you need for like something juicy. And it sort of just wrote itself from there, to be honest.
So when you're writing Crossroads, you picked a familiar genre like crime that you sort of were comfortable with at the time, and then your location scouting, you picked a single sort of space. I guess it was an instance of moving parts, like keeping elements within your control. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, and that was a big thing that I learned from the earlier films, especially Park Bench, which was outdoors. So
yeah, I think all those stepping stones really sort of paid off into this final sort of vision for you. With Crossroads as well, you explained in your video journal about the process of casting and how you initially went for an approach that was pretty open. And then when you closed that and made it a little bit more difficult, it was a little bit more beneficial for you. Did you want to talk about what you've learned about casting from your Crossroads experience as well?
Yeah. So again, coming from like those early days where you've got like bright, wide open eyes and, you think the world is all sort of like flowery, you quickly, once you sort of like corner yourself and you're like, because to make Crossroads, like, I went back home to like work with my network essentially. So I had limited time there. So I was sort of like, I had some big constraints, and that sort of like, I started out being like, oh, like, it's open to everyone. I only need like these basic things. Like, I just need a headshot, and, I'll look at your profile and I'll figure out like from your profile if you're good enough. And that just like, I had a female character, and I started having like, for example, like males applying, just ridiculous stuff that was like sort of wasting my time. I ended up being like, all right, if you want to apply, like, I'm going to make you put in a lot more work. I'm going to have you like have a headshot. I'm going to have you answer these questions. And like, a lot of people didn't even answer the questions. So it's like, all right, like, you're not serious. You're not on this level because like, you're not even following those sort of instructions. Like, I need you to read the script. I need you to do a self-tape. And like all this stuff, like, I know that actors hate all the work that they have to do beforehand, but it's like, if I don't make you guys do the work, then it's like, I've got to do the work. And I was just at a point where like, I sort of just didn't care. Like, and the thing is, like, none of these things really dictated like whether the actor would get the role. Like, if they did a shitty self-tape, like, I wasn't going to be like, oh, well, that's it, you're out. It's sort of just a thing of like how committed are you to this? Because like I've had an actor pull out of a project like on the day. And it's like, I can't afford any of that stuff for this one. So it was sort of just like a test to see how committed they were. And then once they showed me that, I was like quite responsive to, getting back to them and, organizing like a proper audition. Sometimes even like for my actor, like I went to his house, like I drove like 1.5 hours to his house to audition him. And like, I was willing to do that because he had put some effort in. And I knew that if it was right for the part, then like, why wouldn't I spend that time?
Yeah. And that's a buy-in as well. If they're going to actually put in the effort to send you the things that you want to, or arrange a meeting with you and meet with you, it gives them that buy-in. It gives you that confidence that they're going to apply themselves to the project, and they know that you're making something authentically as well. That was Shane Rodrigo, correct? That's your primary actor. Yeah. So,
exactly.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges in terms of like casting? What were some of the benefits as well of working with some pretty experienced actors? Because you had Shane Rodrigo and you had Leanne Morrow. Is that how you say her surname?
Leanne Mauro.
Mauro. Yeah. So you had a couple of experienced actors. What was it like working with some people that were experienced in the field, basically?
It was probably the best thing that like I've ever experienced with regards to filmmaking. Again, like with my earlier shorts, like I wanted to use friends. I wanted to learn. I didn't want to like get professionals and be like, hey, so like I'm this new guy and like I just need you to like do what I say. Like I wanted to like sort of build myself up. And it was fun working with my actor friends, my non-actor friends. It was fun working with like people at my level, but they really challenged me to like, become like a way better director. And they actually taught me heaps. And honestly, more than any other project, like I felt like I had people in my corner. Like I feel like, when you're doing these like smaller projects, you're always pushing people. But, and another thing with like starting out as a filmmaker, you tend to cast actors that are like in their 20s, and, that's fine. Like that's sort of the stories that you're writing about, but they probably don't have all that much to teach you. So this was like me having the chance to work with people that, had sort of gone through the ropes kind of bit, and who also didn't really want to be messed around with. Like they didn't want their time wasted. And because of that, I felt like, oh, do I hear it? Like these two people are almost pulling me along. Like they're sort of helping me. So I learned heaps just from like working with them. We did a lot of rehearsals, and honestly, like that was probably like my favorite experience of the film, just like working with two phenomenal actors.
Yeah, it sounds like it was pretty rewarding as well. And then with the set and the actual sort of shooting, there was a lot of things that sort of led up to the day, like the day that you were sort of shooting, or the scheduling and things like that. There was quite a few posts that I saw around the shot list and the scheduling and the call list and things like that. Can you talk to some of the challenges that was in the post production of the short film?
With regards to like the lead up, it's so weird because I went back to Sydney, and I thought like I would shoot 3 short films like while I was there. And, that quickly became 1 short film. A big part of that was like me and my DOP, like trying to find time for each other.
Oh, yeah.
So that quickly went to 1 short. And, I regret that there were some days that he was free that I prioritized work. And I realized I should have just, called in sick, taken a day off, because we weren't really able to get the shot list at 110% before getting on set. We weren't really able to get the schedule 110%. And these sort of documents, like, there's no reason that you should be able to have them like set in stone like a month before the shoot. And what happens on every project is that like the day before the shoot, people are like rushing around like, oh, what are we doing? And it's like, why isn't this stuff already set in stone? Like when we get to set, we should just be focused on shooting. We should just be focused on executing, not coming up with a plan. So that was a bit of a shame, but it sort of worked out because in my head, you can never be over-prepared. So for example, with Park Bench, like I wanted to shoot it over 4 nights. We shot it over 1 night, and I was happy with all the shots that we got because I was over-prepared. I knew exactly what shots we could lose. I knew what shots like we should take extra time on, get extra takes. I knew what shots we could just get away with doing 1 take because I was over-prepared. And, when the accidents happen on set, that's when being over-prepared becomes being just regular prepared. But if you think you're going to get away with just being regular, like a regular amount of prepared, and then an accident happens, well, your film is screwed essentially. So we could have done better, but I think that's how it always is, like in the lead up. Like you can always do better. With the post-production, I had 2 weeks to edit it. I sort of, I was leading Sydney and I wanted to just get it wrapped because what I was going to do was disassemble my computer and take it with me. And who knows, maybe the airline would lose my luggage, maybe, I don't know. So I just said, I'm finishing the film, I'm finishing editing before I leave. And from there, it was honestly pretty smooth. Like I worked with like my DOP did the color grade. He was quite busy. I worked with a professional sound mixer. She was quite busy. When they did what they did, it was like, wow. Like, I don't really like going back to watch my own stuff, but I've watched this film like quite a few times because I really like it for once. Yeah.
That's really good to hear, man. Because when you put so much work into something, looking back on it, reflecting is always, because we're always our own worst critic, aren't we, as well? When you're looking back at your own work, you can see the little nuances or the slight little thing that you might have missed in a scene, or if this over here was moved slightly, like all those little things, because yeah, you are so close to the project. You mentioned before about your DOP and yourself. I think for me, I haven't really, I've underestimated the importance of the relationship between the director and the DOP. It sounds like it's really important.
I think any relationship that's a good relationship is important. And it just sort of happens to be that, Michael who's my DOP, coincidentally we have the same name, but he's probably been my closest collaborator throughout like all my projects because we're just sort of on the same wavelength. We've sort of always been in the same sort of position. When he pushes, I pull. When I push, he pulls. We're just like, we know each other. And, I remember like, Shane is just such a particular actor. And he was like, yeah, so how are you and your DOP? Because he's thinking back to times where like he's seen a director and DOP fight on set, which is not, it's not abnormal. And I was like, yeah, look, we're great. Like we will have a bit of a back and forth on set, but it's just because we can skip the pleasantries, like sort of thing. So it is really nice having that relationship with just anyone. It just so happens to be that it is with my DOP. And, I wouldn't know how to work with someone else at this point.
Thinking about the post-production of the film, because I know for me, like podcasting, editing, like this is the fun part basically, but editing's the worst kind of thing to get yourself motivated to do and keep that momentum and just keep sort of pushing along. With your editing process, what's involved in editing a short film, and what were some of the drawbacks and challenges that you had to get the end production that you're obviously really happy with? I
would say the biggest challenge was trying to watch it with a fresh pair of eyes when like that's impossible. There's this one sequence of cuts where it's like, in like 2 seconds is like 4 cuts, 5 cuts. And on my first run, like I had compressed that because I had seen the footage so many times that the cuts were all registered to me as like fluid. But the challenge for me was like, how do I get these cuts fluid for a first time viewer that doesn't know what the next shot is, whose brain isn't ahead of the shots? So that was the most challenging part. But to be honest, the rest of it was pretty easy because again, just being over prepared, like the film was essentially edited before we started shooting. Like I already knew what it was going to be. There were a few sort of happy accidents along the way. Like my DP turned 3 different shot setups into one. So that dictated how the edit flowed. But, again, like I'm just the type of person that's over prepared. And the thing about it, if you're not going to be over prepared, what you're going to do is you're going to be like, all right, well, I need a wide shot of these 2 people talking. And now I need an over the shoulder shot of the whole conversation. Now I need it from the other angle. It's like, well, okay, that's just wasted, like, I don't know how long, but like way too much. If I know that I don't want the over the shoulder shots until like 5 minutes into the film, like we don't need to do any. We don't need to waste time with that. So, being over prepared, like it doesn't just help the day go smoother and like it doesn't just help you stay ahead of schedule, but it also helps you just, be a much more conscious director and editor. And yeah, I got to say, like it was actually like a pretty easy edit.
That's really good to hear, because I know that sometimes it can be a little bit of a bog down, but yeah, because it went so well, I think that some of the things that you talked about in your video journal was the fact that you now sort of would approach projects without a sort of level of fear attached to it. Like there was a little bit of nervousness going into this project. Did you want to explain that, and then the process afterwards where you sort of let that go?
Yeah. So like, I think for every project, you're sort of scared. Man, I hate to get like, what's it called, self-helpy on everyone. But I was watching this interview with George St. Pierre, who's an MMA fighter. The way he breaks down things really resonates with me. And he was saying like, there's this element of fear where, and he's trying to break down fear. Like, what is fear? Like, why am I feeling fear? And he's like, well, the fear is coming because I don't have confidence. Why aren't I confident? It's because I haven't prepared properly. So like, how do you overcome that fear? You prepare, you know what you're going to do. You practice your scenarios, you test yourself. And then when you get there, the nerves will wash away because you have prepared. And I guess it's like, you're not facing the unknown. You know what's going to happen when this happens. You know what's going to happen when this goes wrong. And I think, every filmmaker is sort of does have a healthy amount of fear. But if I go back to literally every set I've ever been on, the fear comes from like not being prepared. And this was the first time where my preparation met expectations. And because of that, like it's not an unknown variable for me anymore. Like I know that if I prepare in this way, I will get these, like I should get these results. Now, don't get me wrong. If there's a windstorm, I can't help that. But the fact that I went through like a project like this from start to finish and got like great results, like that unhealthy fear has just washed away because, if they got me to direct like Avengers 10, like most people are going to be like, oh my gosh. Whereas I would just be like, well, Avengers 10 is literally Crossroads, but like there's a lot more scenes in it and it's going to be like, I don't know, a bit under 10 times longer. Like there's not, the only thing that's changed is like the runtime, but the fact that I can do one scene, which Crossroads was essentially like one scene, but the fact that I can do that to like this level that I'm satisfied with, all the unhealthy fear is gone now.
And everything does look so professional. I've seen the trailer that's available that you've shot as well, and the actors do a brilliant job and the lighting's perfect as well. I think that fear that you're talking about that's gone, it's learning through doing, which is like, I'm a teacher by profession, and that's literally the best way that kids learn as well, is getting them into the space and actually allowing them to experience something themselves instead of sort of telling them how it's going to be and what they should know. It's really like the best sort of learning. So I think from this project, it sounds like that you've got a lot of sort of takeaways and a lot of things that you could bring into other projects, and I guess a larger network of people you could sort of talk to about different things as well. In your newer role as like you said you pivoted into sort of writing, do you think that you would go back to do something in terms of like filmmaking, directing again or soon, or are you pretty satisfied in the writing space right now?
Yeah, I'm beyond satisfied with writing, to be honest. If I did for the rest of my life, I'd be happy, professionally or not. But, I definitely would be open to pivot back into filmmaking down the line. It's just that like, Crossroads was like 6 months of like, working like a laboring job and saving up and then spending all that money on like 15 minutes, less than 15 minutes of film. Actually, I don't think I've got that in me again. Like, I need something else to happen. Like I need to, get some funding, or I need someone else to come and say, hey, Michael, like I want to work with you. Like, let's do something together. But for me to just like carry everything or almost everything and like drag everyone else along and give up sort of 6 months of my time is like, I don't think I could do that again. And the thing is, like, I could make an even simpler film, but I really enjoy the process of that collaboration. Like I could shoot a film all by myself if I wanted to, but honestly, that wouldn't really interest me. Like the process of that would interest me. I know there's a lot of people say, oh, you've got to do everything yourself. You got to learn by doing yourself. And I get that, but like, those special features that I saw on those DVDs, like those filmmakers of the 90s, their thing wasn't making films on their own. Like their thing was like making films and collaborating. And that's what drew me into this in the first place. So I would hate to lose that, but at the same time, I'm not in a place where I can do that to the level that I'm happy with without sacrificing heaps of time and money, which I don't have.
Yeah. And I can understand that too, because it can take a lot out of you to create something like this. It's almost like a I don't know, like a 12-week challenge or something. Like it's just so intensive for that short amount of time, and you're running at this certain sort of level. And then, once that's sort of over, I guess that's my question for you as well. When this sort of wrapped and when it finished and everything was edited and you watched the film for the final time, what were some of the feelings that you experienced, knowing that this was done and it was done to the quality that you kind of were happy with and were comfortable releasing to the public?
It's just relief. Like, a lot of people a lot of people ask me like, are you happy? Are you happy? And like, I don't know, like, I'm not happy. I'm just very relieved that it's like of a good quality and that it's finished. But with that said, it's like, it's sort of still not finished because again, the reason why I made the journal is because, you know, I feel like I'm at a level where it's like, once you have some success at this level, you sort of, it's not in your best interest to share that success, to share how you're navigating this, because there's so many things that happen that are unspeakable. You don't want to say them and sort of tarnish. Number one is like, you don't want to tarnish what you're doing. But number two is like, you don't want to tell other people about this, because if everyone jumped in on this, then like, it's going to make it harder for you. So a big thing for me is like, once you hit this level, it's like, there's no information, like people are not forthcoming. So I was trying to, I think with the journal was to sort of share that experience. And yeah, so the thing is, it's not finished because I didn't realize, but this whole film festival thing is its own like other battle. And I'm just learning that now. So, you know, I'm still doing marketing. Like I'm doing these podcasts. Like I'm constantly updating the press kit. I'm emailing like festival directors. I'm working on a poster that's like of great quality. You know, being able to think about it from a festival director's point of view wasn't something that I really considered before. Like, you know, if you have like a subpar poster, most festivals are trying to like raise their level of prestige with your film. If you have a subpar poster, it's sort of like saying, it's sort of like me with the actors. Like I'm not passing the scratch test. So why would they put my film in when I don't even have a good poster, if that makes sense?
Yeah. It's almost like it's not benefiting them to have your film in their festival, even if it might be good. Like the poster is what sort of sells it. It sounds like the festival game is like a whole nother ballpark. There's lots of little mini lessons that you're sort of going on through this journey. Like you finished the filming, you've done the editing and the post, and now it's like marketing and film festivals. Are there any that you've sort of submitted to that you could tell us about? And what was the process like for actually submitting to those film festivals?
Yeah, and just to reiterate, like there's a lot of stuff that I've learned that I'm not going to talk about on the Instagram just yet, because the Instagram is meant to be like this marketing thing. So if like if a festival director goes to the Instagram and sees me saying, oh, like these are the things you've got to watch out for with festivals, it's sort of like saying, well, I don't want this guy to come to my festival because he's going to talk shit. So like I'm forced to like sort of stop being honest on that until the festival run is over. So I am learning, but I'm not able to share right now publicly on that. But yeah, so the process essentially comes down to one or two things. You're either going to apply on a festival's website, or you're going to apply on Film Freeway, which essentially it's this website that connects to other festivals. I haven't submitted to any festivals directly because I've realized that if you are prestigious enough to not use Film Freeway, then you're probably not going to be open to taking my film. Not that it's like bad or anything, but like I'm not that, well, like there's nothing else that I've done that's big enough to get me into that level of prestigious festival, if that makes sense. So it's basically just being Film Freeway, and that essentially just comes down to you uploading your film, you know, putting a director's bio, putting information on your cast and crew, a poster, trailer. Like you can put everything on Film Freeway, and then you essentially just choose what festival you want to submit to, and you submit. It's pretty streamlined.
Yeah. So that's accessible to anybody who sort of has made or is a filmmaker that is aspiring. So what sort of tips would you be able to give to these aspiring filmmakers now, having done quite a few short films yourself and being on a number of like filmmaking sets and being in the writing game for a little while? What's something that you'd tell somebody that's either just starting their career or has just sort of developed their first or second film?
So yeah, let's start from the bottom and go to the top. If you haven't made any films before, you need to just get on set. Volunteer. You have to volunteer. You have to. When I first started, like you needed to volunteer. Like it was crazy to think that you were going to get on set and like get paid. Now it's sort of like shifted a bit where it's like you're crazy to think you're going to get on set. Like you're going to be able to get anyone on set volunteering. If you've got nothing, if you've got no experience, you need to volunteer. You need to just offer your work for free, just to learn and to network a little bit. If you're going to film school, you need to be shooting something every week. Doesn't have to be a short film. It can just be a scene, but you need to, the whole point of film school is to network and to build a portfolio. So, you know, if you're shooting stuff consistently, you're doing both of those. Like from there, I would really just encourage people to just keep active in their network. Like if you've, my thing, like once I finished film school, I sort of like, I had my network and I just thought like, these are the guys that I'm going to be with forever. And, you know, when I went back to make Crossroads, like I brought on 3 people from my network. Like they were, you know, my DOP, the camera assistant, and my producer, my co-producer, I should say. But I don't think they had made any narrative projects since like the last time we'd worked together. So like there was a little bit of a gap with them, but everyone else like had just moved on from filmmaking completely. So you really need to you need to constantly be growing your network, because if you're not growing it, it's actually dwindling. And that's something that I've noticed is very important in writing. Like, you know, I dabbled in writing for 10 years and I never wrote anything that was half decent. I met 3 other writers that were sort of like on my level, had my vibe. And in 2 years of like I'm a pretty good writer now.
Yeah.
Like, so it's important.
Yeah. Networking, I think, is really important. And like with the writing space, I think there's a lot of people out there that can tell you sort of how to do it, or lots of like short courses that can tell you all the different things that you need to know broadly. But I think it's a lot about finding what works for you. And you said, you know, finding the people that you sort of vibe with. What do you enjoy to write now? Like, is it still sort of in the crime vein? Are you looking elsewhere? Like, what sort of things excite you in terms of writing now?
You know, generally it's always crime. You know, it's just such a great way to put people in situations that reveal truth, if that makes sense. You know, sink or swim. There's not many other genres that are sink or swim. And the thing about crime is like you can get someone like Walter White in Breaking Bad, just like the average guy, put him in this like really insane scenario, and then like we're going to see what he's made of. Whereas like, you know, even action, all right, let's put this like special ops guy in a crazy situation where he already knows what to do. And that, you know, that's not like, you know, that's just not where I vibe. I find like my thing with writing is like just putting people in these sort of scenarios that are way above them and they're sort of not equipped enough to handle. And it's like, well, how do you handle that now? I think that is an element of writing that's really interesting to me. And because of that, crime is up there.
Yeah, I think for crime as well, if you're looking at character, I think it also shows such a vast spectrum of characters because, you know, obviously you're looking, whatever criminals you're kind of looking at, but even the protagonists in a crime sort of drama is looking at different aspects of humanity, which would be interesting to explore as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah, like, you know, The Godfather is on one side of the spectrum and like Breaking Bad is on the other side of the spectrum. Like those are two very different starting positions, 2 very different characters, but, you know, they're still in the crime genre. So there is a lot of variance within it. Like you can start with like the average guy who's like never committed a crime before, or you could start with like a mob boss. And yeah, there's a lot of room between that spectrum for what you just said. So I completely agree.
Yeah, and I think that's what sort of draws me to crime anyway, is just the character and the characterization and the way that that's put to screen is how relatable is this person that may be doing something that's absolutely abhorrent, but there is like a human aspect to them that sort of draws you to that. Or then alternatively with a protagonist is, you know, putting them like this regular person that you would absolutely relate to, putting them in a situation where it's absolutely unthinkable and watching them do things in that vein, and then having the audience sort of question that as well in themselves. So I think the relationship between character and audience in crime is really, really good. And I think it's also a really good way to provide tension as the sort of story goes on, because as you said, the stakes are a sink or swim or life or death in a lot of cases. So that's really awesome, man. Do you have a favorite sort of go-to crime TV show or movie that is just your thing?
Better Call Saul is like just up there for me, you know, and it's crime. Like on the surface, it's crime, but there's like so much of that, you know, fancy lovey-dovey character stuff as well. Like it's the genre just has so much room for that. And that's another thing where like a lot of going back to like our earlier discussion, I think a lot of Australians are like, you know, reluctant to attach their thing to a genre, but you know, Better Call Saul is just such a awesome exploration of character or characters, I should say. And it's in the crime genre. Honestly, your last statement just really, you said it perfectly. I'd just literally be repeating what you said.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, man. Yeah, I really like the crime genre as well, and I think that it's one that shows the true sort of face of all aspects of humanity. So, are you the type of person as well when you're writing? Do you or actually viewing things like that, looking at dialogue specifically? Because I know that some people have said when they're doing screenwriting and things like that, dialogue can be particularly hard to get and write authentically. Is that something that you find as a challenge?
Big time. To be honest, I don't think I've ever done it. Dialogue is sort of the last thing you want to do. And it's sort of like, don't get me wrong, like I'll write dialogue as we go and like I'll try to do a good job of it. But to be honest, you're never going to do an amazing job of dialogue if everything else isn't like, perfect. And to be honest, I don't think I've ever gotten to that point where I'm just like, I think I'll just sit here and do dialogue today because everything else is ready. It's like, it's a never ending battle. Yeah.
Looking at this whole project in your career so far, we usually sort of end with a most valuable takeaway. So from your experience with like Crossroads or Park Bench, or even in your writing sort of experience, what's something that you would share as a most valuable takeaway for you, or the biggest learning that has occurred for you in the space of filmmaking for you so far?
Yeah, I think if I'm just going to get to something that's really applicable, that anyone listening can take away and do is just write something a little bit more mature and, cast to experienced actors to pull it off. I feel like, when you make it, like when you produce a film, when you direct a film, everyone that comes on board is coming on board for various reasons. Generally, it's like to get something on their portfolio to help themselves out. That's why money's so good, because once you pay people, it's like, all right, well, I can, like now I'm here for money. And the way that I get the money is by doing a good job for this guy, not doing a good job for myself. But with actors, like if you write something that requires actors that are a bit older, because again, like coming from the film school days, like it's just like, oh yeah, everyone is like a hit 20-year-old and they're like doing 20-year-old things, and it sort of limits you. Like I casted actors that have a heap of experience, and for the first time, like I was really just sitting down and like learning from someone else. And I never had that experience before. Like I sort of regret not doing it earlier, because I would have come so much further, so much faster if I had just elected to work with more experienced actors. So that's definitely something.
Yeah. Pulling out the best in you as well, I think is what I'm hearing, just because they're able to communicate with you what their sort of intentions are, or what their reading is with the script, but then also in that working relationship with you and that professionalism, it sounds like it was a really rewarding experience.
100%. And like the way that actors break down a script is like, it's almost like the best writing education I got. Like, I did a few subjects of writing at uni, and like the actors know better than the teachers, to be honest, because they have to. Otherwise, they're just going up and essentially BSing, which, yeah, you might BS yourself through like the beginning, but if you're going to be doing it for so many years, 10, 20 years, you're going to learn a thing or two and you're going to stop doing that. So I feel like they actually got me to become a way better writer, because, not just because of what you said, but because they had a lot of questions. And those questions make you think, and they make you have answers, and they make you, put that in the script at it like next time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. Yeah. Michael, thanks for joining me today, and I really do appreciate it. Can you tell our listeners where we might be able to find Crossroads when it does release? And everybody should also check out your IMDb and your film journal, which we'll link in the show notes below, so you guys can all track Michael's stuff. But where can we find Crossroads, and when can we expect it to be released for people to look at and see?
Yeah, I would guess that in about a year, I'll release it online, because like that's just how many festivals I've submitted to, and you can't put it online before you finish a festival run, essentially. So in about a year, just go to my Instagram, Crossroads Film Journal. There's a link tree there to my YouTube channel. It'll be on that. And yeah, I would urge any filmmaker that is like, doesn't have their professional career like ahead of them set in stone, check out the Instagram, because like I went from the start of the process and I'm still updating. Like it's, I wasn't shy about like being forthcoming with my mistakes. And as we finish the festival run, I will not be shy about like, revealing all. There's just such a big jump between like your first couple of learner projects and your quote unquote big shot project, that people don't want to talk about. And, I'm more than happy to talk about that and share that information because, it's
opening the door, I think, for people, but it's also showing that it's accessible. Well, this is what it did for me anyway when I sort of saw it. And also, again, that forthcomingness that you said, that openness, that honesty, because like you're a guy just like myself, like anybody else that's out there, and you're doing these things that everybody looks at on the silver screen, on the big screen, and it's like it's endearing. And it's also great to see the behind the scenes for those of us who like that sort of thing, and the challenges that a regular sort of person is going through when they're doing what they may be dreaming of doing or what they've thought of doing or things like that. So I found your Instagram journal like a really good follow. So I definitely recommend everybody do that as well. It'll be in the show notes below. So keep going on it, man. I'll be following you along. It'll be good.
Thank you. Likewise. I really loved the episode that you recommended me. That definitely took a few notes from my writing. So likewise.
Yes. Yeah, Jeremy Drysdale. He was a good talk, man. It was really good. I hope to do more things like this, and that's sort of the purpose of our guest spots anyway, is just to teach people things that they want to learn about in the space of film and fandom. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your part and doing your thing.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. And I'll see you guys next time. All right. Thank you. Bye.